Hello and good afternoon, viewers. Welcome to our show, Knowing the Rules. I am your host for today, Jamal Kingston, and I will be talking with a couple special guests as we go over some very cool topics. With today being the first episode in our 8-episode series, it's important to give us a backdrop of what our show as a whole will be. In this show, we will be focused on Kean University athletics, and the goal is to inform you viewers on the different sports offered at this wonderful college where we reside. Kean University fields 14 Division III men and women's sports teams in 8 sports facilities, including Hardwood Arena and Kean Alumni Stadium. People might dismiss a Division III team, but our athletes really put in the work and leave everything on the field to get those wins. We should be very proud of them. Highlights all of the various teams and all of their clutch plays can be located on the many social media platforms we have, like the Kean Athletics Twitter account and YouTube channel. You may be wondering, how exactly are these sports clips made visible to the public eye? Well, the answer is simple. The sports here at Kean are recorded, and you could even be able to watch them live. We have people who are able to call the games differently as they give their own flair and style to increase your enjoyment and overall experience. With all that's being said, today's episode will be focused on the people who work behind the scenes to make your experience enjoyable. I have here with me today Sean from OCIS. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Sean is one of the few people who is tasked with recording all the sports games. Let's start off this simple. How long have you been working here at Kean and at OCIS?
So I had the job when I was a student at first. So I was a student videographer. And I did that job for about a year until COVID hit. That was my last semester anyways, my senior year. But when COVID hit, everything shut down. And then about a year or two went by, and then my supervisor at the time called me, and she said that her old position was available. And she wanted me to apply for it. I applied and got the job and started last January. So a little bit over a year now that I've been doing this full time.
Interesting. In what exactly was it that made you interested in making this your career specifically?
I got into television in high school. I took a TV production class very similar to this, and found that I loved it. And then I also played sports my entire life. So I kind of want to take those two and combine them. And I just like the aspect of live TV, just because it's a little unpredictable. And also, like in all honesty, it's when you leave, you're done. And I've done some work for a production company in Staten Island, and did a lot of filming and video editing and stuff like that. And it was like the projects always nagged on, like they were always there.
Yeah.
And like the nice thing about when I leave here sometimes, when I go home, I'm home, and that's kind of why I liked it. But I love sports. I love not having to sit in an office from 9 to 5. My schedule's all over the place, and but it makes it fun and it's enjoyable. And the people that are around me too are good people. I enjoy the people I work with.
Interesting. In this studio right now, there is a lot of very expensive equipment being used to film this. Many moving parts are at play here. Could you give an overview of what type of environment is used when recording and live streaming the games? For instance, what type of cameras or digital programs are needed to make this all possible?
It's very similar to this, just in a more mobile platform. Like in the back of the control room there, you have a TriCaster, a little more updated than ours. We have 2 TriCasters. Basically, we have 2 of this entire studio, because as you can imagine, athletics, there's a lot of games going on, and especially in the spring, it's a little more of a hectic time. But there could be 2, 3, 4 games happening at once. We only really have the ability to stream 2 at a time. So say like Saturdays are kind of like a big day for us, especially in the spring. So we might have baseball, softball, lacrosse, and men's volleyball happening. So we'll kind of have to cherry pick who we're going to cover. But we have TriCasters, monitors, cameras, SDI cables for video, XLR cables for audio, audio boards, headsets where we can actually talk to our camera operators while they're on camera, so we can kind of steer them in the direction that we want them to go. Especially too, because like we don't have tally lights on the cameras, so like the camera operators don't really know when they're live, when they're not. So verbally over the headsets, we'll let them know when they're live, so that way they can keep steady on their shot.
Interesting.
I'm sure there's other stuff I'm missing, but we've got plenty of equipment to be able to do what we need to do.
That's true indeed. Correct me if I'm wrong, but set up and break down times where you have to be insane. What's the time frame like for any particular game, and what would you say is the most time-consuming sport on record on a given day?
Time-consuming sport, It's more so of how many students are available. So our entire crew, all of our camera operators, all students. It's an on-campus paying job, and we work around their availability. So it's not so much the sport; it's how many crew members can work that day. And sometimes we'll have 2 cameras, sometimes we'll have 5 or 6. And the days that have 5 or 6, setup can take a little bit of a time. Usually what our normal routine is we'll show up probably like 3 hours early. If the game's at 7, we'll show up at 4. We'll run cable, set up the TriCaster, always teaching students how to do new things. So like if a student doesn't know how to set up the TriCaster, they'll work with me. I'll show them the complete setup of it, because at some point we want them to be able to do it on their own. And then once everything's set up, tested, we know it's good to go, we'll send everybody out on their breaks, come back, and then we'll cover the game. So that's usually kind of like the pre-game routine.
Also, where is this equipment stored? Is it all jam-packed in the OCIS building or another specific location?
So it's actually located in the Angola gym, just because of what we mainly cover. We do other things, obviously, besides sports, but mainly what we cover is athletics. So it doesn't make sense to have it in the OCIS office, which is in the middle of campus, and to have to drag it over to the athletic facility every day. So we store it in the Angola, and then if we're doing multiple games back to back at like the football stadium, we'll keep it there overnight because we can lock it up. But if we have basketball games, we have to completely set up and completely break down every single day, just because we're set up on the track and we can't lock that track up. So everything has to be taken back so it's not stolen.
Okay. Okay. In this class, we were told that some students are able to be hired to work with you and OCIS. How reliable are the students that help you film games and also do other things in relation to the productions as a whole?
I mean, the students are great. I mean, a lot of them are TV production majors, and a lot of them are not. And sometimes some of the best students I've had were students that had no interest in this whatsoever. It was just, and I asked them too when they're interviewing for the job. I was like, so I noticed you're a biology major, for example. And I'm like, what made you interested in doing this? So, camera operator for a live stream. And they just said they thought it sounded interesting. That after looking at all the different on-campus jobs that there are, this seemed to be one that's a little more entertaining. And I think it is. I mean, especially if you're a fan of sports, you don't want to be sitting behind the desk for 4-6 hours a day, all that kind of stuff. And also too, like when I had the job as a student, before I got hired, I just went to class and I went home. Like it felt just like high school. But like once I got hired, then I kind of got entrenched more in like the campus life and stuff like that. So
that's true.
But yeah.
I know we've mainly been focusing on the sports broadcast, but are there other events on campus that you're tasked with recording?
Yeah, I mean, all of them. Any live event on campus, we're in charge of. So, I mean, a lot of people think that we just do sports, and it's mainly because that's the majority of what we do. If I had to put a percentage on it, I'd say at least 85-90% of what we do is athletics. But any type of event on campus, even, and you're available to request us if a professor wants a particular a presentation recorded or streamed, they can request us as well. And then even like the president's events, like sometimes they have events in Green Lane, have events in Wilkins, and they want it streamed to Kane University's YouTube account. They want it to Twitter account. Sometimes they want YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook all in one shot. So we'll provide that service for them as well.
Okay. Did you participate in any sports when you were in high school or college?
Not in college, but in high school or up to high school, I played baseball my whole life.
Okay.
So I only played one sport. But I started when I was 5, and I think the last game I played was when I was like 22, 23.
Oh.
Yeah, after I graduated high school, some of my old teammates, we joined an adult league.
Okay.
And just had to have some fun.
Okay.
Nah, baseball is definitely my favorite sport.
Interesting. Do you have a favorite professional sports team that you root for?
The New York Mets. I love the Mets, and I'm also a Giants fan. Sorry, Dorian. Because, that guy sitting back there here interviewing next is a Cowboys fan.
I see.
But he enjoys pain. It's okay. But no, I'm a big. If I had to pick a sport, baseball would be number one.
Okay.
I'm an avid Mets fan, but I also love the Giants.
Good. Finally, what's your favorite sport to watch and record here at Kane?
I mean, bouncing back, I have to say, obviously, baseball I do love. But one that actually took me by surprise, and I never paid attention to it until I started working here, was lacrosse.
Interesting.
Lacrosse is a very fast-paced, and I never understood how physical of a sport it was until the first time I actually worked it as a student. And with the way we do productions, like we have like a wide shot, just like your main shot, but they also have tight shots. Then the challenge of a tight shot is trying to follow the ball as closely as you can, and with lacrosse, that's a bit of a challenge. But I love being on camera when I was a student, and I still do actually today. and that's why I love lacrosse, because it was so difficult. It was a challenge, but it was something I enjoyed, and I just find the sport to actually be entertaining.
Good, good. Well, folks, that's about all the time we have for our first segment. Thank you, Sean, for taking the time out of your day to answer these questions and give more insight on OCIS.
Of course.
We're going to head into a commercial break, and after that, for the second segment, you will see a montage of a few of the sports teams that we have here at Kane.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just vapor with flavor.
It won't hurt my kid like cigarettes, right?
Vaping is safer than smoking, isn't it?
There's really not even that much nicotine in them, right?
My kid?
My kid
Knows it's dangerous.
Get your head out of the cloud. Today, nearly 8,000 kids will start vaping, maybe even yours. Learn about the dangers at talkaboutvaping.org.
I wouldn't do that. What are you doing? What are you looking for?
Step back, Latrell West. That one's good. Saved by Ross, back over by Bishop. Seeger, and now set by O'Brien. Hard attack, getting through yet again. On the way. This one swung on, driven right to the second baseman. Should be an easy routine play. He handles it in time for the out. That's Christian Palone. Only one away. Rips at the first pitch again. Skying behind the first baseman this time. And it lands. It looks like it was fair. I believe it is. A run is going to score. It'll be second and third. His base is loaded, in fact. Only runners advance just one base. Right-handed bat against the left-handed Giglio. Drives this one up the middle. It'll be a base hit. Should drive in one, maybe two. Rounding third. The throw is offline. He's safe. We have a tie game. Runners hold on at first and second. From Yonker, little looping pitch. Up the middle, a base hit for Caleb Rodriguez. Just finding the hole. Out. RBI in his last at-bat on a fielder's choice. A chopper again to the second baseman, and he misplays it. It's an error. One run's going to score. Another run's coming home. Cougars tie the game. He's safe. He is safe. The Cougars are tied 7-7. Pitch on the way, swung on into center field, and it falls in. It falls in. The RBI and game-winning hit. Tyler Provost. The Cougars win.
Young Metro don't trust you, I'm gonna shoot you.
Is open!
I think I just touched the button. Is it still on?
Aquí ayudamos a quienes les gusta comer postres ricos.
Welcome to our final segment for today. Like I previously mentioned before, this episode is a starter and is dedicated to those who work behind the scenes who don't usually get to be on camera. Coincidentally, although you may not have seen his face, you have definitely heard his voice. I have with me today Dorian, who is one of our sports commentators here. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, let's start from the beginning. What year are you and what is your major?
So I'm actually a graduate student in my second semester in the Communication Studies program.
Good, good. Since we've been talking about sports today, what are your favorite sports?
My favorite sports, my top two would probably have to be basketball and football. I think basketball is my first love, but you know, football has creeped up there a little bit, and you know, I'm really into baseball too.
Good, good. Now on to the real business of today. Would you care to explain when you started commentating on our sports games and how long have you been involved in it?
So I started commentating for sports games during my my senior year. Really, my senior semester. I only had one semester, which was the fall 2021 when we all came back to campus, and I had to take. I graduated, so I had to take a little bit of a break because it is a student job on campus. But then I became a graduate student, graduate assistant. And part of my role was coming back and doing the game. So really, I've been doing it for about a year and a half, close to 2 years, and yeah, that's really been it.
Good. That's very interesting. May I ask, have you always wanted to commentate for sports, or was this something that you just fell into?
So funny enough, I didn't come to college originally to do sports commentating at all. So I started out in college as a biology major. Thought that's what I wanted to do. Thought I really wanted to be a doctor. Turned out that wasn't exactly the way that I was going to go. So I actually had a moment taking me back into high school where I saw a clip of Stephen A. Smith yelling at Skip Bayless on TV. And, I looked at him and I was like, oh, I could do that.
Yeah.
So, heading into sophomore year, I changed my major into communication studies. And I was taking classes, still trying to figure out what I could do and how I could get into doing sports journalism, doing sports commentating. And, I really found myself kind of in a, lost spot until I met a couple of people that helped me along the way. And it ended up becoming something that I'd like to think I've gotten really good at, and that's really how I've gotten into where I am today.
Good. Would you say that you're using this opportunity to commentate the games as a building block for a future career in sportscasting, or is this just a one and done thing that you're doing for school?
It's definitely not a one and done thing. I can say that for sure. It's sports are my passion, they're my love. It's something that I've really come to appreciate, just everything about it, whether it's the production side, whether it's looking at the preparation. I've really fallen in love with the preparation, and so it's not something that is a one-off. It's where my career is going to take me.
Good. Just a sidebar real quick. Mike Breen is the primary play-by-play commentator for the New York Knicks alongside the famous Clyde Frazier. The both of them are known for their flair and signature catchphrases. Breen has his signature bang call whenever shots go in, and Clyde has his signature rhymes to emphasize certain plays and player attributes. He says things like bounding and astounding, or a player is swishing and dishing. In your run as a commentator for Kane Sports, have you developed any signature phrases you enjoy saying? And would you care to tell us what they are?
So a few of my phrases I've borrowed a few phrases. So one of the other commentators who is actually a volunteer commentator here, John Edmond, he has a phrase whenever there's a three-point shot, he says kaboom. So that's something that I've borrowed from him every now and then. Whether that's giving players nicknames. We have Shannon McCoy on the women's basketball. We like to call her Shannon Money McCoy because she's absolutely money from the three-point line. And something else, again, me and John Edmonds, one of our favorite things to say anytime something crazy happens is, oh my goodness. And if something crazy happens, it warrants an oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's true. What would you say is your greatest strength as a sports commentator? Would you also happen to know your biggest weakness if you have one?
So I would say my biggest strength as a sports commentator is definitely preparation and the relationships that I've built. The athletes here definitely seem to trust me a lot more than they would if I didn't care. And so, whether that's seeing them in the hallway saying hi, or even just, heading into practice, seeing what they're doing, I think the preparation has been one of my biggest strengths because at the end of the day, we're on camera or we're broadcasting the game for an hour and a half to anywhere between an hour and a half to 3 hours. The preparation before that takes way more than that. And so really it's about showing up and letting them know that you care. So I'm outside at practice. I'm in the gym when our indoor sports are in practice. I'm meeting with coaches. I'm meeting with the student athletes. I'm talking to everybody, and then I get into wherever I am, whether that's in office or at home, and I'm looking up stats. I'm looking up storylines. I'm looking up things that I can use.
Mm-hmm.
As far as weaknesses, I think, I need to get a little bit more comfortable actually being on camera.
Mm-hmm.
So, we don't get that big of an opportunity to do it. Basketball season is really one of the major opportunities where we can do that. And so, when it comes to interviewing and asking those questions, it's really about, okay, I need to find a space and be able to feed off of the other person. So, if they say something important in their interview, making sure that I'm able to, okay, they said this, I need to feed off what they said. And really, listening is the biggest part.
Good. Recently, the men's basketball team was in the playoffs. Could you describe your feelings going into that game, and do you think you ever had the nerves for really big games that we have?
I think if you're not nervous, you don't care.
Mm-hmm.
So I walk into every game, and to be honest, I'm completely nervous. My heart is jumping out of my chest. But once I lock in,
Mm-hmm.
I'm in there. So
Okay.
when it came to the men's basketball game,
Mm-hmm.
oh my gosh, I was nervous because for a couple of reasons. It was the first playoff game at
Mm-hmm.
home. It was my first men's basketball playoff game. I've been able to do other playoff games, men's soccer, we've done softball, but I wasn't commentating at that time. So, I was nervous,
Mm-hmm.
and also, again, knowing the players, I really wanted to see what would happen. So my thoughts and my feelings heading into that game, I was also super excited because, again, first home playoff game in nearly 10 years for the men's basketball team.
Mm-hmm.
They had an incredible season, and so I really wanted to see what would happen. And unfortunately, it didn't go the way that we thought it would.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it was a great game, and that's really what you can ask for as a commentator. I think even though it wasn't necessarily the greatest game for the men's basketball team, selfishly, it was one of our best games calling.
Good. That sounds good, and that's a good thing to keep in mind. This has all been very interesting and exciting. For my final question, is there any advice you would give to a freshman or sophomore here at Kane who would be interested in doing this? Do you think this is something that would beef up a resume?
It definitely is. So when I look at it, a lot of different companies, they look for you to have a reel. And so, before even doing this, I didn't have a reel. I didn't have anything that I was really able to work off of to
Mm-hmm.
show other people. Now I think this it's a great opportunity that I've had, and a couple of the things that we've been able to transform in broadcasting with the crew that we have, whether that's Sean, who we just spoke to, or
Mm-hmm.
some of the other students. We've really been able to transform the program, and on top
Mm-hmm.
of that, I think advice is literally just fall in love with the preparation aspect. You've got to be able to prepare extensively. I have way more notes, and I don't use all of my notes when it comes to, so I think just preparation is the biggest part.
Good. Well, thank you for joining us for today's episode of Knowing the Rules. Please tune in next week as we cover an actual sport and go in depth on that. Have a wonderful rest of your week.